Assalamu alaikum to the people of Uzbekistan. I thank the convener of this conference for accepting my abstract and full paper, and I also thank my friend Muhammad John sir who has invited me to participate in this esteemed conference. I am Dr. Sharmanaz from Allahabad, India. I'm English. I teach English in Rajashi Tandon Mahila Mahavidyalaya. I'm also author, editor, and translator of 37 books, and founder and president of Progressive Literary and Cultural Society. So the title of my paper is The Problem of Study of Linguopoetics in India and the Contribution of Indian Linguistics. Actually, this is one of the topic which has not been researched in India. So whatever I have read and I have come to a conclusion, I have made this paper. So my paper goes like this. With the advent of time, we are witnessing many new areas of research and studies. One such field is linguopoetics. In the contemporary scenario, it is often believed a philological discipline of its own right with a combination of stylistic and literary criticism. Linguopoetics is a branch of philology which is not very much popular in a country like India, where much emphasis is given on studying literature, especially Indian English literature. In recent times, we have seen the growth of translation studying, paving a way for the indigenous literature written in Indian language to become popular globally. But that doesn't mean that Indians are not working in the field of linguistics. In fact, the linguistic tradition of India is very old, dating back to the ancient time. Panini, who is considered the father of Indian linguists, was a Sanskrit philologist, grammarian, and a revered scholar. His masterpiece work, Ashtadhyayi, was published in the 19th century by a European scholar. In the world, he is considered a first descriptive linguistic. It is believed that even Ferdinand de Saussure and Leonard Bloomfield were greatly influenced by him. But unfortunately, there are hardly any work in English in India on Panini, and they are confined only in Sanskrit literature. So we have to work in this field, especially the scholar of English literature. But this is different with the Russians, as they have made their scholar Vinogradov famous by carrying out many work on him. Vinogradov, in his work Theory of Poetic Speech, has classified three main functions of language. He is remembered for his contribution in stylistic. Another scholar, A. Lipgard, has further elaborated Vinogradov theory, making it more comprehensive in one of his articles. He elaborated the three main functions of language classified by Vinogradov, making a distinction between them. So in my paper, I will be discussing the problem of study of linguistics in India and the contribution of some of the linguistics. So literature and language both are very comprehensive fields of studies, and they are expanding day by day with the development of new research and studies. With the advent of time, we are witnessing many new areas of research and studies in English literature and language. One such field is linguopoetics. Linguopoetics is the branch of philology that explore linguistic units which are stylistically marked, employed in a verbal text related with their function and comparative importance in manifesting artistic content and fabricating aesthetic repercussion. In other words, stylistically marked linguistic units are those linguistic units which accomplish the ramification of impact. V. Vinogradov, the famous Russian linguist and philologist, in his work Theory of Poetic Speech, has classified three main functions of language. He is remembered for his contribution in stylistic. Another scholar, A. Lipgard, has further elaborated Vinogradov theory, making it more comprehensive in his article. He elaborated the three main functions of language classified by Vinogradov, making a distinction between them. A. Lipgard and his disciples further developed and modified the theory of linguistics. They continuously tried to evolve the ideas developed by their Russian predecessors, who were great philologists like V. Vinogradov, G. O. Vinokur, V. P. Grigojev, O. S. Akhmanova and Vijay Zadanova. It is quite reflective that they have been influenced by the Prague linguistics circle because they have assimilated some of their ideas in their theory. Uh, we know that how this Prague linguistic circle has accomplished themselves when they are have worked so hard and they are widely famous around the world. As for Leibgart, linguopoetics is a full-fledged philological discipline that has its own aims of study. This means that linguopoetics possesses its own method of research. Leibgart disciples were scholars like Garkavenko, Karteva, Shmul, Murashika, and Karpova, who established an effectively applied linguopoetics method. These methods include the linguopoetics of an artistic device, linguopoetics confrontation, linguopoetics stratification, as well as the linguopoetics of narrative type. Lipgart has opined that, I quote, linguopoetics confrontation is carried out for the purpose of determining the relative value of stylistically marked linguistic element used in the text under analysis. The method is based on comparing two or more literary texts which are similar in terms of their content and formal, functional, stylistic characteristic. Unquote. In the contemporary scenario, it is often believed that philological discipline of its own right with a combination of linguistic, lingo-stylistic and literary criticism. Linguopoetics is a branch of philology which is not very popular in a country like India, as we give more emphasis on studying literature, especially Indian English literature. And the current government is also focusing more on translation studies, making the indigenous and regional literature popular around the world. But there are lots of linguistics who have worked very hard and have gained name and fame around the world. In fact, the linguistic tradition is very old, and though we English scholar don't give much importance to Panini, but he is very much famous in the Europe and America, in the Western world or Occidental world. Panini, who is considered unanimously considered as father of Indian linguistics, he was a Sanskrit philologist, a grammarian and grammar scholar, and his work Astra is not translated into English by European scholar who published them in 19th century. In the world, he is considered a first descriptive linguist, as Francois has opined that it is believed that and even the great linguistic and great critic like Ferdinand de Saussure and Leonard Bloomfield were greatly influenced by him. But unfortunately, there are very little work in India on Panini in English literature, because it is there are lots and lots of work, but that are basically in Sanskrit or in Hindi language, mostly in Sanskrit. This, but we are lagging in this thing. Otherwise, Russians are giving so much importance to their scholars and they are carrying out so much work. But in India, people don't take much interest in linguistic. A reader on Sanskrit grammarian J.F. Stahl believed that Panini was the greatest linguist of antiquity and deserved to be treated as such. Ashtadhyayi is a milestone in the field of Sanskrit grammar, which is a sutra-style treatise of 3,996 verses of linguistic syntax and semantics. They are expanded in each chapter, and each chapter consists of 4 parts. The importance of this book is that it is considered as the base of Vyakaran branch of Vedanga of the Vedic period. Panini's greatness is that his analysis of noun compound is still relevant and constitute the basis of modern linguistic theory augmenting in Indian languages. Panini has given a comprehensive and scientific theory of grammar which is very much appreciated by scholars who have taken it as a foundation of classical Sanskrit. Credit goes to him in making Sanskrit the foremost Indian language of learning in the olden days. It is believed that Panini Panini's morphological theory was much ahead of its time, and no other equivalent Western theory before the 20th century can match it. So, this was the greatness of Panini. Not only Panini, but there are many other Indian scholars who have given their valuable contribution in the field of linguistics. Sir Monier Williams, a British by origin but born in India at a time when India was under colonial rule, is considered as the greatest linguist ever born in India. Being a British scholar, he at that time India was a British India because India was under a colonial rule. So he was a British, but he was born in India, so he's considered as British. Being a British scholar, he was the second Bowden Professor of Sanskrit at Oxford University, England. Means at those in those time, even the people of British world were studying Sanskrit, though they are studying now also. But this is achievement of a century back, that still the Sanskrit was at that time popular in the Western Occidental world. Sir Monier Williams learned many Asian languages, including Sanskrit, Persian, and Hindustani, and taught them also. In 1883, he founded the University Indian Institute, which turned out to be a base for an academic focusing focus as well as training ground for the Indian civil service. Sir William was a visionary, and this institution was his vision, which he has planned in the early 1870s. Belonging to the two cultural polarities, India and England, he was well acquainted with the environment, especially between the differences of the two Oriental and Occidental world. Still, there is lots of difference between these two cultural polarities. This he kept in mind and has supported the academic research of the West into Indian culture. Lacking fund for the project, he travelled to various places in the year 1875, 1876, and 1883 to collect funds, and he was successful also. Many Indian native princes supported him in his venture, and with the support of many people, the foundation stone was laid in 1883 by the Prince of Wales, since India, as I have discussed earlier, was under British Crown at time. In 1896, Lord George Hamilton inaugurated the building, but unfortunately, the institute was closed in 1947 with India gaining independence, because at that time all the Britishers went back also. This is also one of the reasons. Sir William had a fairly enough knowledge of Hindu scripture and has studied Vedas and written some article on it. In one of his articles on Hinduism, he argued that in Hinduism the Advaita Vedanta system represents the Vedic ideal and is the highest way of salvation. He believed that karma and bhakti are of lesser spiritual values. He also opined that Sanskrit literature has unified Hinduism, which is a huge polygon or irregular multilateral figure. No description of Hinduism can be exhaustive, which does not touch on almost every religious and philosophical ideas that the world has ever known. These are the theories which has been researched by a scholar like Thomas in 1988. Monier Williams has worked very hard on Sanskrit English vocabulary, being influenced by Petersburg Sanskrit Dictionary. Hence, his significant contribution to the Sanskrit literature is the compilation of a Sanskrit English dictionary, which he published in 1872, making Petersburg Sanskrit Dictionary as the base of it. The dictionary was later revised, and scholars like Ernst Lehmann and Karl Copier collaborated and published in 1899. In the contemporary scenario, Saithupati Prasanna Sri, one of the leading Indian linguists, is very famous around the world. Being a professor of English at Andhra University Visakhapatnam, she is a polyglot and she knows 27 Indian languages. India as a country is blessed with many languages, but many languages are on the verge of being extinct and are endangered languages. People like Prasanna Sri are working hard in preserving these languages. Credit goes to Sri for promoting minority tribal languages by creating a new writing system for tribal languages spoken in India. These languages include Kupia, Koya, Linguopoetics, Jatapu, Konda, Dora, Gadaba, Kolam, Gondi, Lingua Kotia, Savara, Kuru, Sugali, Lingua Godu, Mukhadora, and Rana languages. Many of these languages we have not even heard of. Uh, for her contribution to literature and linguistics, she was awarded Nari Shakti Puraskar by President Ramnath Kovind on International Women's Day 2022. Her books include Psychodynamics of the Woman in the Postmodern Literature of the East and the West, Shades of Silence, and Women in the Novel of Shashi Deshpande, a study. So all these scholars, whether it is Panini or William Sir Williams or Prasannasi, and there are many more. Uh, Such scholars have worked very hard and made a fertile ground for the study of linguistics in India. But the fact is that even we Indians are more inclined to the study of literature, or we believe that literature is written by heart. So literature, the writing reflect feelings of heart, but linguistic is something where you have to think and you have to put upon your mind. Syllabus in the Indian University are designed focusing of literature, especially Indian English literature. And as I've discussed earlier, in the recent time, the government is focusing more on translation studying to make a regional language and indigenous Indian literature popular globally. There are lots of work being carried out in the field of translation, emphasizing more on Indian classic, so they may be read around the world. Then there are not many linguistic centers in India for the study of linguistic. Even the universities are not focusing on the study of linguistic. So there are some of the factors. So I have discussed some of these factors which are responsible for the non-popularity of linguistic study in India. I'm also a scholar of literature, so I'm not so much aware about the problem and research about the field of linguistic, and especially in the linguopoetic. So whatever I have researched and read in the short span of time, I have made this paper. I hope you all will like it. Thank you from India. This is a token of love from India to Uzbekistan. Thank you.